Hello, everybody. This is the sixth episode of the Never Miss Lethal podcast. I'm Gym Class Hero, and joining me today are Charmer and TheJustinLarson. How's it going today, guys?
It's going good. How are you, man?
Splendid. All right, so I guess we're all waiting for this exclusive card reveal. All right, I'll do a fancy little countdown as I find it. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here we go, boys. Ancestors Battle Axe. It is a 7-mana red item. Effect is +4/+4. When you summon it, give the top creature of your deck 4/4. +4/+4. Wow. I will say I like this card a lot. I've been seeing a lot of cards recently in this reveal, and red is looking really good right now to me. Thinking one of the first decks I want to try is some kind of big archer build. I think this card is pretty solid. I mean, it gives your card 4/4 burst, so it's like a more expensive Dawn's Wrath. But also gives the next creature on top of your deck 4/4. So if it hits something, depending on what creatures it hits, this adds value to already valued creatures. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton over to Charmer. And what do you think?
So I kind of really love this card. When I saw it, there were 4 main things that I immediately thought of. The first was that this is one of the few items that kind of solo solves the problems that items have. So typically when you play an item, you become vulnerable to 2-for-1ing yourself in the form of being hit by spot removal. And this card is going to provide you value on a second creature, so it kind of mitigates that. The second thing I thought of immediately, and this is because I play Charcher a lot, right, is how well this card synergizes if you play a lot of creatures with charge. Giving something like even just a Nord Firebrand +4/+4 off the top of your deck is absolutely like bonkers insane how good it is, right? And then that segues into the third thing I thought of, which is Prophecy. So Forge Satyr Control's been floating around a bit. While this card I don't think fits into it, Crusader and Prophecy's been on my mind as a result. And so again, I think of like, what does this look like if the top card of your deck is a Protector of the Innocent, right? You go from like a meaningless 3/2 to a 7/6 guard that you're triggering potentially off a Prophecy. Like, that's massive. And then the last cheeky thing I couldn't help but think of was like interactions with this card in Merrick. So if Merrick high rolls this, not only do you get like bonuses to your board, but then you're also going to get bonuses to potentially whatever else you draw. So if you think about like Breton Conjurers or other things that might be in a Merrick deck, you could get like some weird sneaky value and not even be running this card, right? It would just be a byproduct of the RNG. So this card I really like for a lot of reasons, and I'm certainly going to test it in something that's charge heavy. I think that's where you're going to get a lot of the value.
Absolutely. And Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I definitely like this card. The thing that I like about it is kind of alluding to what Charmer was saying is that before the only item that I felt comfortable running in like any deck that could run it was Dawnbreaker, because I felt like it was high statted enough and immediately impactful enough that I didn't feel like I was going to. I felt like I could gain card advantage with it instead of lose card advantage with it regularly. And Ancestors Battle Axe I love for that reason, because it's the +4/+4 is going to be able to let you trade up on board, and the +4/+4 in your deck is just added bonus for later. I'm really excited too by the do something to top creature in your deck mechanic. I think that's really cool, and I'd love to see more cards that do things like that. I think any card that takes advantage of the fact that this is a digital game and doesn't have to be beholden to the sorts of things that paper card games can do is really interesting and really great. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that sort of effect just ends up in do random X effect. And in this case, you're doing something that is sort of random, and that you're putting it on the top card of your deck, but it's a card you would draw anyway. So I think it's great. I love these sorts of things.
Okay. Oh, hey, quick side note, Justin, you seem to be a bit choppy, they're saying. You're a bit robotic sounding. Anyway, you can remedy that?
Let me plug myself in real quick.
Yeah.
It's a byproduct
So I'll put the mic
of his
closer to
internet.
The internet, I figured.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
We'll just have to endure then. Alright, so let's give this card a rating. I'm gonna give this bad boy a 7 out of 10. I think it's strong. I really like it. Turn 7, busting, adding 4/4 and stats to the board. Depending on your board, could be pretty insane. It's also, I also like time investment cards, like down the road. The Charmer, what would you rate this?
I would give it a solid 5 out of 7 stars. And I say that both because of the meme and because while I'm a big fan of it, it's certainly not, it's not strong enough that it's going to be like ubiquitous, right? Not every strength deck wants to run this, but I can think of certainly some uses for it in some mid-range, and I could think of some uses in obviously aggro and things with charge. Again, the secondary portion, the summon, is really what makes this card, because you're not getting 2 for 1, and then anytime you're looking at anything that costs 7 or even really like 5 or 6, you have to immediately think like, okay, what happens if I get Javelin? What happens if I get Belligerent Giant? And this gives you some insurance, so I really like it.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Charmy that the summon effect is definitely the interesting part and why I want to play it. I think the card will see playing constructed. I don't think it's gonna go in every deck that could run it, but I give it a 6 or 7 out of 10 for sure. I'm excited to play with it. It's gonna be great in Arena.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, wow, yeah. Lovely. All right, cool. So I think that's the card. Hope you all enjoyed it, chat. As we go ahead, I guess we'll segue into the next topic. Article recently released, well, today, called In-Depth Look into Heroes of Skyrim. Have you guys seen this article? I'm assuming you have. I'll link it.
It's a really good read. I liked it. It was a little overwhelming, actually.
Overwhelming. All right, nice. So let me kind of segue into the first card. This one I really liked. It's Dragon's Fury, 4 mana. Deal 3 damage to a creature and 3 extra damage for each friendly dragon. Oh wait, that only targets its creatures, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah, the creature part's what really kind of holds it back. I mean, it's still good, and it's really good in Arena, I think. But the creature part is the bummer there.
Okay, so I actually misread this card wrong. I thought it was do 3 damage for each dragon, because I was going to hope to just swarm dragons and then go face with this, but still pretty solid removal. I mean, hey, if you have 1 dragon on the field, it's a 4 mana 6. That's damage. That's pretty sweet. So they're kind of showing us a range. So speaking of dragons, they're showing us a range of dragons at all different costs, it looks like. So, which I think just benefits this card, as it'll be easier to have multiple dragons or take out a big creature, especially. I mean, yeah, the whole can't hit face holds it back, but I guess it might be flat out broken if it could hit face. What are your guys' thoughts?
I like seeing ubiquitous.
Justin, think you might have cut off. Hello?
Yeah, he may have. He does have some internet issues. For those of you who are wondering why he doesn't stream and why he only does YouTube, this is the reason why.
Yeah.
He's let me know on several occasions that he has some internet issues.
Okay. Oh, no problem. I think we can kind of trek on a bit while
So,
we're waiting.
well, I was going to say, just real quick, for me, I think the value for constructed play is actually pretty hard to judge right now without seeing what other dragons are going to be available, specifically in intelligence, and then thinking about what ones you would want to pair with this for control. Because it only targets creatures, you're really likely using this for control, and so you have to say, all right, what dragons am I playing also in control, and what 4 slots am I taking out to put this in? Because you're not replacing Lightning Bolt for this, I don't think. So, you know, is this better than Schemer? Is this better than Hive Defender? And so on and so forth, for like if you're saying like Control Mage or other, you know, intelligence-based control archetypes. So if there are dragons that are good enough so that you're wanting to play them already, then this rises in value. But without knowing that, I think it's hard to judge.
I have to agree with that. That's a good point. Without knowing fully what dragons are out there and what to pair them with, you wouldn't really know if it's worth it. And the 4 spot, I don't think I'd want to take Lightning Bolt out for this. Especially often, depending on the control deck you're playing, Lightning Bolt often is enough for many issues. Depending on your pairing as well, you may have other removal options.
Yeah, so the other thing that stands out to me is Lightning Bolt kind of like has defined our format for a bit in terms of like what's playable and what isn't. You think of cards like Quinrell Burglar, and then like even as strong as Markarth Bannerman is, it sometimes doesn't make the cut in some decks just because of like the ubiquity of Lightning Bolt, right? This set may or may not produce a bunch of creatures that Lightning Bolt just doesn't kill. So if we suddenly see like a huge influx of either 5-cost creatures, 5 health creatures or 6 health creatures that Lightning Bolt isn't getting the job done on its own, Dragon's Fury could end up being more attractive because with just 1 dragon, you're suddenly killing things that Lightning Bolt isn't killing, right? So the presence of what you're playing against might also dictate the value of this. But again, until we see more, it's hard to judge.
An excellent point. I think that's solid. I guess so, yeah, we'll kill 5. Depending on decks, though. So I'm gonna rate this card maybe because it's in the shadow. We don't really know what we have here. So I'm gonna say a 5 out of 10 until we get more info on dragons and such. Give me just a moment. I'll be right back. But Charmer, do feel free to share your thoughts on the rating for this card.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a 5 out of 10 is fair. I would give it a slightly higher rating, slightly higher pick rate for Arena. I'm gonna keep talking like you're not falling down the stairs, and yeah, I think in Arena, because removal is priority and it's a common, that can't be understated as well, right? Commons are really important because that means you're more likely to draft those. I think it's solid. I think it makes Intelligence, which was already a great Arena choice, that much better. And as a sneak peek at the cards that we're about to discuss, I think this Intelligence Dragon also makes Intelligence a great Arena choice as well. But
Unmute myself. Okay, I already unmuted. Sweets. I agree on that. Actually, we have some interesting content from the chat. Decent card if dragons are OP. Dazer states, in a normal control deck, Crushing Blow is better, but goes well with Ally. Huh, interesting. So it is a more costly Crushing boats below on its own. You need a Crushing Boat card now, though. It is a pretty good replacement for Crushing Blow.
Hello?
Hey there, Justin. We can hear you.
Sorry.
No worries. Alright, so just talking about Dragon's Fury, the 4-mana blue card. Deal 3 damage to a creature, and 3 extra damage for each friendly dragon. It was mentioned that this could replace Crushing Blow in a sense. And blue decks
Sure,
that
yeah.
want to run that. I mean, it helps with the ally, as it was mentioned, and that's a pretty good concept. I'm still mostly unimpressed with this card because we don't know, but I mean, if it hit face, it'd be probably too good. Really too good, but yeah. Your thoughts, Justin?
Added to Blue's arsenal and Arena, but I don't anticipate having this see a lot of play. The one thing that does excite me is that it has the potential to fairly easily kill 6 toughness creatures like Night Shadow or Preserver of the Root. Both of those cards have played quite a bit, and Blue sort of struggles to remove those occasionally. So that's my only thought on it.
Yeah.
If it is good, it'll be good in a deck that doesn't exist really in any form right now.
Control Sorcerer Dragons. Let's go. All right.
That's right.
So rating from 1 to 10.
For potential?
Yeah, potential. So we actually have an idea. Justin? Rating?
Now Charmers.
Huh?
I am Justin.
Oh, yeah, I know. What's your rating of the card?
Oh, I said 5 for the potential?
Oh, I thought you said 4 potential. Okay, I didn't hear the 5. All right, well, we'll move on to the dragons, which is the tribe of choice, it seems, for this one. I guess the first one, Mystic Dragon. I don't have too much to say about this card. 4/4/4 Prophecy. I guess they were keeping Arena in mind, or synergies. If there's, we don't know if any cards have further synergies with Prophecies, so that might make this card worth it.
Oh man,
I don't really.
and that's the first card I saw that I'm 100% sure is going to see play.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you, Justin.
Really?
I am very high on this card. I tweeted about it immediately.
Okay, I need your opinions now. Go.
So for me, when I think of like any of the aggressive decks that are running intelligence right now, a lot of them are running Royal Sage just because it's a 4 for a 4/4 body. And with the exception of the occasional high roll on charge or ward, more often than not, you're just getting 4 for a 4/4. And if I have my choice, I take Prophecy over the maybe high roll every day of the week. Those are quality stats. I think this goes right into any Prophecy Battle Mage. I could even see this being played in potentially some control decks because the 4 stat line is enough to trade into many of the smaller creatures. Like I'm a big fan of this card, and that's not counting potential dragon synergies that we may or may not have. So
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there are a lot of times, like going back to Preserver of the Root, which I just mentioned, there are a lot of times when you're the slower, more reactive deck where you play that turn 3 or turn 4, and you know it's going to die as a 4/4, but you're fine with having just a 4/4 for 4 so you can get to your late game. This card is going to fulfill a similar function in those decks, and also, you know, it could in those control decks, and additionally is going to be in all of the Battle Mage Prophecy decks.
Okay. Yeah, Prophecy Battle Mage can make use of this. Personally, I know in the four slot, there's other cards I'd rather have for blue. I mean, honestly, I think if I'm playing Sorcerer, I'd probably do want Royal Sage, to be quite honest. I mean,
yeah.
The chance of, I mean, this in a Sorcerer deck mid range, the Mystic Dragon versus Royal Sage, I'd probably go for Royal Sage personally. And accounting the Tyro potential is pretty insane. The potential for charge is always nice. I mean, sure, you're rolling the dice, but I guess with Prophecy, in a sense, you're also rolling the dice. And if I'm trying... What you're saying?
Oh, I was going to say, for me, like, it's not just the intelligence comparisons or even the 4-slot comparisons. Like, I think of all the Prophecy Battle Mage decks that run, like, Grotwood Ambusher. And
yeah, exactly.
This card, in my opinion, would completely replace that slot at a minimum, assuming you're not running it alongside it, because it plays cheaper if you're playing it from hand. It has better stats, and more often than not, I just don't care about the ping from the Ambusher. So,
ironically, the only time the Grotwood Ambusher ping is really relevant is in the mirror match.
Right, in the mirror.
Well, all right. Well, we're seeing here, people are saying Control Sorcerer. This card can go in, I guess. This could enable it. I mean, yeah. I guess this is a more defensive card. But I'm not sure if that's if more Prophecies are what Control Sorcerer really needed. I mean, Prophecy's always good, though. But yeah, I'll rate this card personally. I'm going to say not too impressed. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong angle. I mean, it's definitely better for a slower deck, in my opinion. I mean, or Prophecy Battle Mage. So I'm going to say solid 4.5 out of 10. Not 5 out of 10. And Justin, your thoughts? Your ranking.
I give it an 8. I expect to get killed by this thing many times.
All right.
That's funny because 8 is exactly where I'm going to value it as well. Again, without seeing anything else, just thinking about what we've seen revealed and what we know is the current meta, I would expect this to be played, and that's not counting potential dragon synergy.
True, dragon synergy does give it a bit more points as we find out more. All right, speaking of dragons here, overall being Seto Kyber this expansion, we got Spine of the Elder Blood. Aside from having a cool name, it's a 6-mana, 6/6 purple dragon. Summon, gain +1 max magicka. I must say, I really like this card. As in, it just actually gives more. I mean, I kind of wish I had a keyword to it. Like, I wouldn't mind if it was 6-mana, 5/5 guard, but maybe I'm just thinking too greedily. There's a reason I'm not a card designer. Really like this card, Spine of the Elder Blood. I mean, adding more ramp options to decks, as in I've been experimenting with Scout, for instance. removing Tree Minders. This Tree Minder feels kind of bad as a tempo loss, but having something like Spine of the Elder Blood may be nice to throw in there. Ramp, some of the other ramp decks, Ramp Warrior has some popularity. Having another ramp option to try to trigger those Hiss Groves, as well as do those Rage from Hand combos to get more mana. Having that is great as well, I think. And maybe the ramp variant of Spell Sword could use this, but I like it. I also like ramp and playing big cards. So I'm passing off to Justin. What do you think?
It's really fun looking. I'm definitely going to play with this card. I think that the obvious way to take the dragons in this set, since they all cost a little bit much, is to put them in a ramp package. So the opportunity to play this with you're already going to be playing purple if you're ramping more than likely. So I like this card a lot. I'm excited to play it.
Okay, and what do you think, Charmer?
I think there's a lot of potential, just beyond the ramp, right? Like even just a 6/6 for stick for 6/6 for sticks, guys.
Sticks.
The stat line, Satan's stat line, if you will, is good enough to like say be played in arena and some other formats, and then by adding that you gain max magicka. You can now put it into decks that are focusing on a ramp strategy to give you something that's hitting the board that's relevant before your ultra late game, right? So instead of waiting for your Blood Magic Lords or your Manticores if you're in Spell Sword or so on and so forth, this is a turn later than your Hiss Mage, right? So that is a pretty significant, amount of stats. In many ways, you could almost see ramp kind of shy away from being a more control package and maybe even go into more of like a beatdown style of play, almost like the proactive control monk in many ways because of this card. I do also really like that it's another ramp option so that you're not stuck running only Tree Minder. So you don't have to run like Hiss Grove and Tree Minder. If you're not in the scout package, right? Like if you want to try sorcerer ramp or you want to do spell sword ramp, you now have other options to trigger your Hiss Grove. So I like what it's doing to the game. I think that middle ground of like, okay, I've played some of my early game, but I'm not at my late game. What do I do? I think this card is like in that right spot, and it will definitely see some play.
I'm definitely going to give the Satan Dragon a 9 out of 10. I think this card is... I love this card. I'm going to be honest. I love everything about this card. From the artwork, which, by the way, the set's artwork is freaking amazing. I guess we'll get into that a bit later. But, man, I love everything about this. And
I totally agree. It's beautiful.
It's great. The effect, the stat line's solid. This is what I'm talking about for your ramp decks. I'm giving this... Maybe I'm being really biased, 9 out of 10. Maybe a bit more appropriate would be 8 out of 10. But what are your thoughts? Justin, hop it off to you.
I gotta call out PDMD28 for talking some smack about my Argonian ramp friends who have served me well for a year now, first of all. How dare you? How dare you, sir? The Tree Minder will live forever.
Oh, no, Tree Minder's not bad.
I'm going to give this 7.5 for 8 out of 10. I think it'll see play. I like it.
All right, nice. And it's a rare, too. Good, actually. And what are your thoughts, Charmer?
I don't think I can give it anything other than a 6 out of 10. But yeah, it's going to see play. Whether or not the card itself ends up being the reason that decks win, it's certainly going to enable archetypes that have kind of fallen by the wayside. So I think the conservative, safe rating would probably be like an 8 out of 10. But it's good enough. It's definitely going to see some play. It requires hard removal, and if you're spending it on this, you're not hitting Blood Magic Lords or other things. It advances your strategy for the decks that do want to play it. It's like you said, the only thing it's really missing is guard, right? Like if this had guard, this would be like a 10 out of 10 auto include in any ramp strategy.
I agree. This would be meta-defining with guard.
Yeah, but even without guard, I think it's still good enough. I think PDMD in chat hit the nail on the head for me as well, which is that this is a fantastic Tribune target, which is not to be forgotten.
Excellent point. 6 healing is always nice. All right, this moves us on to another sweet dragon, which I always on a side note, this is kind of bothering me. I always feel like Elder Scrolls Legends maybe are wyverns actually than dragons, on accounting they only have 2 legs. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I feel like they're like actually wyverns, like smaller dragons that have wings. But I digress. Undying Dragon. This is a 6 mana, 5/5 dragon, yellow, drain that has +5/+5 while you have 30 or more health. And I think this card looks a lot of fun. I'm looking at this towards more of some kind of monk list running this. Honestly, with all monk recently got a nice healing card with additional other healing options available. I think Heal Monk looks like amazing, especially because if you attack once with this at 10/10, it can really just take the game. Just to kind of clear up any confusion. It doesn't keep getting 5/5 as it's not a pilfer effect. If you have 30 or more, it becomes a 10/10. If you ever dip under 30, it becomes a 5/5. If you were able to get back up to 130, that's kind of crazy. To 30, it becomes a 10/10 again. I like this a lot.
Yeah,
and I like the concept of healing kind of decks. And I'm liking the interactions with your maximum health actually having a factor in there. Of course, you just might play an understated card, but it's even if you don't have 30 health, it's still a 5/5 drain. So in like a controller list, sure. In any list, it's a 5/5 drain. So if you're behind, it's just fantastic because you can get back in there. And I think drain's pretty relevant. And I'm gonna hand this one off to Charmer. Your thoughts?
I really dig this as a control card. So the drain is certainly relevant. The 5 health is relevant because it can't be lightning bolted. Again, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Dragon's Fury, which is if enough cards that are being played are above 4 health, that thing rises in value. So it can't be lightning bolted. It doesn't have guard like Protector of the Main does, so you can hide this in the shadow lane if you're in need of it. It doesn't have breakthrough, so it doesn't have the same problem that Night Shadow has. You can safely trade into creatures and still survive. I think there's a lot going for this in terms of like what it wants to do as a potential like stabilization card. And if anything, I would say my one complaint is that the dragon's name is Undying, but it's not that the dragon's undying, it's that it keeps you from dying. So it should be more like, friendly Healbot dragon or something. But yeah, I think that for the control archetype, that this is a quality include. This is what Quinral Burglar should have been. No, I mean Burglar has its uses. Like I'm being unnecessarily harsh, but this is certainly better than Burglar if you're playing a control strategy.
Or Khajiit, no love. All right, and your thoughts, Justin, on the Wyvern?
Yeah, I like this card quite a bit. I think that it's definitely good in control. Right now you're kind of looking at a very limited pool of large drain creatures that you can slap out there to try to get back into a game. Mostly you're relying on Night Shadow, or maybe you're trying to pull off something cheeky with the Hungering guy, the 4/1 that gets drained when you put it in the shadow lane.
Ravenous Hunger. Yeah, Ravenous Hunger.
Ravenous Hunger. But I think that there's a spot for this in a mid-range strategy too. And the ones I'm thinking of are the ones that in your aggro matchups to stabilize, obviously, and then the +5/+5 is sort of incidental. And you use it against control to get to a point, hopefully pretty easily, where you can gain card advantage off of cards like Triumphant Jarl or Golden Saint or stuff like that are going to give you, because you're breaking your opponent's runes, you want to stay at least as evenly matched as possible in resources. So yeah, I think that it's got a spot in a mid-range strategy that abuses those cards too.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I think the dream with this card is like being low on health, having it on the board, and then hitting a nice rage combo, and suddenly clearing your opponent's board while having a 10-10 left over. It's just pretty sweet to think about. But I'm gonna go ahead and give this card. I like it a lot. I like Drain. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. And Charmer, your rating.
I think that it's really good, but I think I'm only going to give it a 7 out of 10 because, comparatively, I gave Spine an 8 out of 10. I don't think this will be played as much as Spine, but I think that it will be played. I think that there's another there's already a good set of ways to gain life for a lot of control decks that are potentially more reliable because they don't have to live for a turn, so this might compete with those, but I think that this still has a place, and I said it a bunch so far, but I'll keep saying it. We also still don't know what other dragon synergies exist, so that plays a big factor, but I think I would give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay. Solid. And Justin, did I ask that already?
I think that there are metas that, like, this card is sort of not going to perform at all in. And it kind of remains to be seen whether that's what we're going to end up with. There are decks that can kill you before you can get this online and start swinging, in which case it's a dead draw in your hand. And there are decks that are never going to let you use it at all because they're going to remove it, and they have enough removal to be able to handle the relatively small number of bombs you have. I think that, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because I think it will see play, but I don't think it's going to it's a niche role that it's playing, and I like what it's going to do for some decks that I want to play, but I'm not sure it's going to have a big impact.
Okay, very good. Well, let's go ahead and, speaking of dragon synergies, we have some. And here's a card I really like, Woodland Lookout. He is a 3-mana, 3/4 Wood Elf green card. When you summon a dragon, gain 4 health.
Yeah.
I like this a lot. First of all, 3-mana, 3/4 is pretty cool on its own there. Not too bad. As well as getting, I'm not sure like cost wise for dragons, there are any lower cost dragons. But either way, if this is something your opponent will like. Not only does this trade well against aggressive decks with their, but also if you just play a dragon, you just gain 4 health. So depending on what dragon you played, if any other dragons have prophecy, this could be insane. I think this is a pretty sweet card. Overall, I could definitely see testing this out. I think Control Assassin is something I try playing. Often healing may be an issue. This, depending on what dragons are out there, this could be pretty reliable. I mean, it does have to survive a turn, then you actually have to play other creatures. But if it does survive one turn, it's fine. But it does, if it bases out a lightning bolt, that's pretty cool too, I think. Honestly, getting your opponent to spend a lightning bolt on this. You play this on turn 3, they have to spend their turn 4 getting rid of it. Sounds great to me.
The lightning bolt, idea is actually exactly why I like this card. They had me at 3/4 for 3, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And your thoughts? Okay, so Justin, please, your thoughts.
Interrupt. But what I mean is that the removal most likely to take care of this costs more than the threat does, so I think it's pretty good. I mean, the 3 life gain or the 4 life gain when you play dragon is cool, and I think that there will be a life gain monk dragons type of deck coming out of this expansion. But it's just those base stats, the 3/4 for 3, I think is what's going to make this playable. And I like what it does. I like playing decks that take a little bit of damage in the early game to draw some cards and then stabilize. And this fits perfectly in with my strategy. So,
absolutely. And your thoughts, Charmer?
I think stat-wise, this card is great. Like you guys are saying, I basically agree. I think that the 3/4 for 3 makes it attractive for a lot of reasons, but for me, I look at this as a potential ramp scout card. I was saying earlier that the Elder Spine might make it so that Tree Minder isn't as required. I'm not saying you abandon it entirely, but it's not as required. And so if you're transitioning your Tree Minder slot to Elder Spine, and if you're running Scout, which means you might already be running Nahagleave, you might already be running Odavang, and then God's knows what else, this becomes a pretty attractive 3-cost card that you can play just for the stats, and then maybe later have some synergies to get you some burst healing that sometimes Scout is lacking. So I really like it in potential ramp Scout with some dragons.
Totally agree with you, man. Like, I'm in ramp Dragon Scout's one of the decks I'm looking forward to building the most, and taking out Moonlight Werebat for this, I think, is going to be a pretty easy swap.
Absolutely. I love this card, so I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think a lot of green decks that I like to play, some kind of style. I think this is going to be awesome. Your rating, Justin?
Yeah, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I'm sure this card will see play. The Monk and Scout Dragon decks don't have hard counters. I think this is going to be a card we're seeing a lot of.
Okay, and Charmer?
I would also give it an 8 out of 10. I think that in the archetypes you want to play it in, it'll certainly see play, but I don't think that it's strong enough to rate as like a 9 or a 10 because it's not like quite ubiquitous to like all agility plays, and it's certainly not the sort of thing you're considering in every deck archetype, but it will certainly help the builds that you're specifically, targeting the dragons and late game style of play.
Okay.
Chad is a good point too, that this is a common card. And I wanted to say that I really like that, we're seeing stuff that's going to allow for some dragon synergies in draft. I think adding another layer of complexity to another layer of depth to the draft process is going to be really exciting.
Oh, for sure. All right. So our next dragon synergy card, an interesting one, Ancient Lookout. Whenever it hits a 2-mana, 2/3 skeleton, whenever you summon a dragon, summon a 1/1 Draugr Sentry with Guard. Now, this card, looking at this as, it's hard to say because without seeing all the dragons, I don't know. So, the one deck, I was thinking of maybe a token strategy, depending on the lower cost dragons that, I don't know, maybe like Mother Dragon or something, cheap card that summons a token, another token dragon that can proc this, or even just a token that wasn't a dragon, could proc this effect multiple times. Synergizes with Bone Daddy, which is kind of cool. I guess in control, since it's summoning a guard, that could be pretty relevant. Kind of slow the damage to your face down. But overall, 2-mana, 2/3 is cool. Doesn't add a Fireball, still does execute, Crushing Blow. Well, they're using Crushing Blow on this, I don't think you're too upset. I think it's okay. Justin, what's your thoughts?
So at first I thought this was like really weak, and then I started thinking about how many control decks I have put Dragentail Savior in. And I think this card has more potential than I gave it at first. Assuming you're running like a critical mass of dragons, I think it could definitely play a role in a deck that doesn't really exist right now. So I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not we'll see it. It depends on what else we're presented with, but I do like the design. I mean, weak though on its own, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. And your thoughts, Charmer?
So I'm really middle of the road on this card because when you imagine all of the scenarios where this could go right, it starts to sound really amazing. A 2/3 for 2 is good enough. We've seen decks that run the guy that reduces the cost of items that don't even have main deck items just because he was a 2/3 for 2 and had ally synergies, right? Like a 2/3 for 2 is enough. The fact that he summons a 1/1 with guard when he triggers means that he has the potential to protect himself. So against other aggro decks, just by getting one trigger, you might prevent them from trading into it, and then that might buy you time to get another trigger and just kind of like speed bump things. So that's pretty good. But that's like the good part, right? Like that's what's going well for it. The downside, in my opinion, is that one, it's a 2-drop, and we haven't really seen like a ton of 3-drop dragons, right? And this isn't a dragon or a shout. This is specifically a dragon for the trigger. So I don't know how often you're going to like play this and then get a trigger on curve, again, with what we've seen revealed so far. So the likelihood of that scenario where I said, well, you could play it and then maybe protect himself is lessened. And I honestly think that, everybody's going to naturally say like, well, this could die to execute, and that's true. And I'm okay with that. But the biggest problem I have is, so like everyone else and like we're doing, right? When I read this article, I read this in a top to bottom linear fashion. So I was like, well, execute's a problem, but okay. But, further down below in this article, we get our pastry mage buddy, who will see play. And I think that's another knock against this card. So for as much as this could have going good for it, I think there's also enough going bad for it that I'm just kind of, it's very middle of the road for me right now. Also, it's a skeleton, so it dies to Dawnbreaker. Not that that matters, but worth noting. But yeah, like I feel like there's enough going bad for it right now. And again, without seeing other cards, without knowing how consistently I'd be able to trigger this the following turn. Because if you get one trigger, I think you get your value's worth. And if you don't get one trigger, I'm not impressed. So I don't know. If I'll jump ahead, right? I'll say, all right, so if I was going to rate this right now based on what's revealed, I would give it like a 6 out of 10. The 6 is on the high end potential, but I think that there's enough knocks against it to not be super excited.
Okay, I agree. I'm going to actually give it more of a 5 out of 10. It's, at one hand, it's going to be pretty strong. On the other hand, it's almost like a card I don't want to play by itself, if that makes sense. Like, I'd rather maybe play it at turn 5 and have a dragon in hand, or hope it survives. But, I mean, it has potential. Again, I'm looking at token synergies myself. Maybe a token spell sortless with this, just depending on what dragons are. There's a dragon for 3 mana. I'm going to play that and this, and then a dragon. It's pretty sweet, I think. But, I mean, without further information, I'm going to leave it at 5 out of 10. Justin, your rating.
Yeah, I'll agree with the 5 out of 10, but this is also a card I'm prepared to be completely wrong about once the rest of the set is revealed.
Okay, cool. Let's move on. Another shout was revealed. This one's interesting. Call of Valor. So, when you summon, when you play... Okay, so for those who don't know what your shouts are, they're a new type of action that each time you play one, it gets stronger. So there's 3 levels for each shout. I don't believe there's going to be a 4th Mystical Iron level, that if you get one back. But that would be kind of cool. But with Call of Valor, summon a 3/3 Sovngarde hero. I'm going to assume that Sovngarde hero is a vanilla card. I don't believe it tells us what that is. So the first, 3/3 stat line for 3 is not best, not the worst. But it's a 3/3 vanilla card, I'm assuming. I don't really know if it will have effect, but I can assume it's a 3/3 vanilla. Second time you cast it, you summon 2 3/3s. So that's pretty much a 6/6 for 3 mana. And then the third time you cast it, fill in a lane with 3/3s. That's what, 12/12 worth of stats for 3?
Yeah, this card's good.
I like it. I can see this in... we're not so sure what Sovngarde hero does, but all I know is that third cast is pretty amazing. So go ahead, Justin. What are your thoughts?
It is so one of the things that I think that is important to think about is like what people are going to be playing at different stages of like the deck building process once the expansion's released. I think this card is obviously playable and it has an obvious amount of power behind it, and so I anticipate seeing a lot of this in the first few weeks of the expansion being out. A bunch of homes, you could put this in most most decks that run yellow and probably do pretty well with it. One of the things I like about this is that being that shouts are actions, this is the sort of card that I think an action mage list might be interested in running. So I like that aspect of it as well. It's very straightforward, but I think it's powerful enough that it's worth looking at every time you put together a deck with willpower in it.
Okay, very cool. And your thoughts, Charmer?
I I was really, really excited for the agility shout, and I was like day one going to build something that was going to focus on that, but I think that this one trumps it. This is, in my opinion, the best of the three shouts we've seen because it is good on the first cast. Not that the agility one isn't, but this one is significantly better on the first cast, and not knowing how often you're going to get more of them, I think that's very relevant. But even going to the second cast, right? So the agility shout goes to like an undercosted Malefic Wreath, which is great, right? That's why I was super excited. I was like, I want to play something agility control. That sounds fantastic. This takes you to 6/6 worth of power for 3 on just the second cast. That is like borderline absurd in my opinion in terms of stats, right? It's a literally like half a golden saint, but in terms of cost, but you shave 1 power of toughness off. Like, yeah, you don't get the card, but like, who cares, right? Like, you get an insane amount of stats for that, and that's not counting if you've already got a Divine Fervor, or God knows what else is there. And then when you get to the third one, you're flooding a lane for just 3 magicka. So if somebody does swipe your board, you can flood 1 lane and then drop whatever else on the other side. Like, this card is going to be really good for aggressive strategies. I think this card is just even good enough in control strategies, because once you get even to the second cast, if you get some quality trades out of it, then you can start 2-for-1ing things with this. I think Justin is right. I think Action Mage certainly wants to play this. I think that anything that runs Atromancer wants to play this, because if you thought Nord Firebrands were a problem, Atromancer for 4 and then fill the lane for like 3 more, right? You're going to have the 1 flame guy, but you're going to play 1 card and get 3 more guys out of it. You might see, instead of Merrick Battle Mage Atro combo, you might start seeing Mage Control Atro combo. Like, this card is just good. It's really good. It's really good in Arena, in my opinion, because again, even if you never cast a second or a third one, a 3/3 for 3 is just good enough. And if you happen to run across something that levels up a shout or a second copy, I think level 2 of this is good enough to make it worth it. Like, I'm very high on this card. This card is very, very good in my opinion.
Yep, I totally agree.
100%. I'm gonna give this card 9.5 out of 10. And Charm, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I don't know. I might actually just flat out just give this a 10 out of 10. Like, this will be played day 1, and I am really confident that this will be played day 30. Like, unless there's something that's not printed, right? So I will always throw that caveat. Unless there's something not printed that outright neuters this is good enough without any other synergies. No shout extra synergies, no Divine Fervor synergies. Like, just throwing 3 of these in your deck is good enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'll give it a 9 out of 10 too. I'm saving 10 out of 10 for like something that's obviously broken, but
Exactly.
this card will 100% see play. I like it. And good point about Arena. I mean,
Oh my god.
pick these up early and often.
Yeah, I can't imagine the Arena where the guy gets like 5 of these. Like, it's just going to be dumb.
Oh my god.
Because it's a common. Like, you can't take that part not into consideration, right?
Oh yeah, true that. It's a common. Even just having 2 of them in Arena is probably pretty solid. Ugh. Hope I don't go against that guy. Alright. And now we go against a Greybeard Mentor. 4 mana. Oh, we're not going against them. We're showing them. Greybeard Mentor is a 4 mana 2/2. Summon. Draw a random shout from your deck. I like this card. I mean, especially this. Shouts being pretty strong, especially something like Call of Valor we just saw. Having something to play. Because, I mean, one main thing that's holding shouts back is 50-card deck, drawing them. I think this adds a good amount. I mean, adds consistency. I do like consistency. But you're playing a 4 mana 2/2, so depending on if you're playing them on turn 4, if there's not a lot of pressure on the board, that's great. Then again, if you're the aggressor, might not be so bad, but I am lukewarm about this card. What would you say, Charmer?
I think lukewarm is correct. If he was a 2/3 even, right? Like if he just didn't die to Firebolt, I think I would be happier. He's obviously he's good at cycling and getting you a card, and he's going to get you a specific card. So, I mean, he's got that going for him. But in terms of like control decks, if it's anything like mage or intelligence based, like I don't think you would play this guy over elusive schemer, for example. And for, depending on the decks, like there might be times where I would even consider like Merchant's Camel to still be better than this in some ways, right? Like, I don't know. Again, I guess it's going to depend on how crazy the shouts end up being, but yeah, he doesn't trade up very well either, right? Like he just like you're paying 4 for him, and so he's not even killing like shitty 4-drops, like that's harsh, but that's the truth, right? Like he's at most like a finish off trigger. Like I don't know. I'm not super sold on him, unless the shouts end up being like a huge focal point, which maybe they could be in Mage. Like I don't know what the intelligence shout is, but getting the Valor shout and then playing a bunch of them and then maybe putting them back in your hand with Aaron and then doing it again. Maybe that's a thing. Getting extra copies from College of Winterhold, because that fetches cards that cost, 1 and 2 and 3. And as of right now, those are, all our shouts are 3 or less. So I don't know, maybe, but
yeah,
I'm kind of on it.
Yeah, your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, I think you guys covered it pretty well. I'm not super into this card. It's not for 4 isn't as bad as it could be, given the fact that well, here's the thing. There are matchups where this card is going to be great. Like putting a body on the board and tutoring up a copy of the Willpower Shout could be phenomenal against a control mage deck, for instance. I mean, I think that would be a pretty solid play a lot of the time. And even if they do hit it with a Firebolt, I think that's totally fine. That's one less removal spell, one card out of their hand, and you're a card up on them now, which is important in those kinds of matchups. But I'm not searching up a 10-cost card that's going to win me the game either. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's pretty weak.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, if I were to run this card, probably never as a 3-0, but 1 off maybe for some odd reason. But personally, I'm giving this card, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. Feels just kind of awkward. I mean, of course, being neutral, I think the theme of neutral cards, they're a little weaker at times. But, he replaces himself. He gets that going for him. But, yeah, 4 mana, 2/2 on turn 4. I mean, it depends. It could hurt. Even later on, it's just hard to play him. And if I'm a control deck trying to stabilize, he's not really offering more. Thank you for the follow. Christ almighty, I thought I disabled that. Let me just remove that.
I will say, like, the one place I see this useful, at least, is in an altar deck that really wants to get a hold of its shout for some reason. Being able to consistently tutor up your card that tutors up your spell could be great.
Okay, so what would you rate the card?
I mean, I'll give the card a 4, a 3. I mean, a 3 or 4 out of 10. But I mean, very niche into the types of decks you're going to want to play this. I actually think that we'll probably see quite a bit of this in the first few weeks, because people are going to want to be playing their shouts and stuff. But I don't think it's particularly good.
Okay, and Charmer, your rating?
I was like fully prepared to just give it a 4 out of 10, and I had committed to it. But then Bradford Lee reminded me that it could potentially be kind of like Elusive Schemer. I don't think it's good as Elusive Schemer, but like when I consider this in an Ultra deck, right? It's like your neutral Elusive Schemer now, so you don't just have to play Ultra Assassin, because it is the summon effect's okay. So I'm going to say 5. I'm going to go from a 4 to a 5 out of 10 because I was not yet factoring in like using Ultra to fetch this guy and then re-sacrifice him again the next turn.
Okay. Like it. All right. Next card is now one of my favorite mechanics that's introduced into this, Beast Form. For those who don't know what Beast Form is, certain Nords, when you break a room, turn into a werewolf. So we have Circle Initiate, is a 2-mana 2/2 red card Nord with Prophecy, Beast Form, +2/+1, and she'll turn into her werewolf form, which is a 2-mana 4/3. As you can see, even when silenced, there's no point in silencing her. You can't. It looks like once Beast Form is triggered, that effect is permanent. Something to note. So now, this being off of Prophecy is great, especially in Prophecy Battle Mage. Just playing this on turn 2 doesn't feel too bad. It becoming a 4/3 after breaking a rune in an aggressive deck is fantastic. So I'm liking the way this card is. I mean, aggro definitely needed some tools to be not so punished by the Prophecy system. Charm3r, your thoughts?
I really I love werewolves. Like, I'm not even ashamed of it, right? Like, I got a thing for them. So anytime that they're throwing more in, I'm excited. And I'm excited for the Beast Form mechanic. And I really, really, really want to see how else this materializes. But this card in particular, I'm not sure that I'm fully sold on. It's really only going to, in my opinion, be good in aggressive strategies, probably, again, like Prophecy Battle Mage. And I'm not sure that I run this over other cards that would be in the 2 slot. Because, like, on turn 2, like on curve, like this isn't the one you want to be playing. Like, I would almost still rather play a Crocodile just like on curve on turn 2 from hand. Like, if you get off Prophecy, that's great. But, if I play this and I'm relying on this to get my damage in, right? Like, I got to attack 3 times with this thing just before it changes itself. Now, again, in an aggro deck, if you're not following it up with more damage, then there's something wrong. But I'm just saying, like, worst case scenario, you play this, you play your second thing, it gets killed, and blah, blah, blah. It's just not good. There's also the other underlying problem is that this is reliant on rune breaks. So in the late game, when you've got that control deck down to like 4 health and you're trying to finish them off, anything with Beast Form is going to be basically a dead draw, which kind of bums me out a bit. So I'm excited for the mechanic, but for this card in particular, I'm not necessarily super high on it.
Okay, and Justin, your thoughts?
So I'm kind of gonna take a different look at this. Personally, I kind of think of this as the strength, the red during cut purse, right? And then granted, you do have to break a rune as opposed to just pilfering, but I don't know. I think this card's really strong. I think this is another one of the cards we're definitely going to see play. I think that this will probably replace the 3/2 with Garden Prophecy in warrior decks and in decks and in archer decks and in crusader lists. I just think this card's really good.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna give this card, because this with aggro, something aggro needed. I'm gonna go ahead and toss this at a 8 out of 10. I mean, not the best on turn 2, and of course late game top deck. This is kind of rough to get, but we don't. Again, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 with the hopes that there may be cards with synergies for Beast Form that may give you, maybe a support that you play it and it's a trigger Beast Form, Blood Moon or something like that. So hopefully something like that is what I'm thinking of. So I'll leave it at a 10. What do you think, Justin?
7. Actually, I'll go with 8 out of 10. I anticipate this card's going to be all over the place.
Okay, and Your thoughts, Charm reading.
So I'm gonna be the guy, and you can feel free to come back in a month and tell me how wrong I am. But I give this a 5 out of 10. I think it's really good in arena, and that's about it. I think that in constructed, I don't think it holds up to cut purse, because cut purse, they have like the one turn to respond, and then it's out of firebolt range, and then it's out of execute range. I think that the activation cost for this is too high, and I think that being even silenceable, like on the first get-go, no, less likely, right? So cut purse is silenceable at any point. Like this, you have to get it off the first try, but I feel like this card is too brittle, and I'm not happy playing it on turn 2, or like right out of the gate. And I'm excited for the mechanic, but I think that we'll see a bunch of it in the first week or two, and then I think it's going to fade away because I think it's just too brittle and not reliable enough, personally.
Okay.
I just transformed into disappointed in you, Charmer.
Yeah, I know. I'm okay with being wrong. There's a part of me that hopes I'm wrong, because I want to play some werewolves, but I legitimately think that it'll be played a bunch in the beginning, and then it's going to get weeded out in favorable of more consistent options, because I just don't think this is consistent enough.
Okay. Well, in a few months we'll be chilling in Charmer stream to spam me. I told you so now. All right. Looking at the next card, a Palace Prowler. She is a. Is she right? Yeah. She is a 1/1 Khajiit green with Drain and Pilfer. Gain 1 Magicka this turn. I mean, I guess she's okay for 1 drop. But I mean, what should she go? I'd probably Monk, right? Gain 1 Magicka this turn. So on turn 2, if you get swing with her, you'll have 3 Magicka. I guess that's cool. I think I'd still rather play, I don't know, Descendant of Akash, is it called? The moon, the one praying to the moon. Khajiit, I'd rather, if I had to choose between having a 1-drop and Monk in my hand. However, maybe in other decks she may be available. Hell, maybe, I don't like this card. I don't like it. So I'm just gonna say I don't like it. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, because again, turn 2, you can play a 3-drop. If you have the ring, you can play a 4-drop. So getting you a bit of ramp could be pretty interesting. But I think she's just like a cheaper, worse Torval Crook in a sense. But again, I could be wrong. So I'm gonna hand this off to Charmer. What do you think?
I think this one's going to be one of the toughest things to judge its value without seeing it in practice, because the high rolls are insane with this, and like top decking this late feels horrible. So unless you've got maybe some other stuff that are synergizing with like the 1 point of health from the drain or other things to buff it, late game you don't want to draw this, but this is absolutely a 1-drop that I want in my hand if I'm playing like ramp or control, for 100% the reason you said, right? Like if you've got the ring and you play this, you're forcing your opponent to respond to a 1/1, or they're going to eat a Hive Defender the next turn, right? Like you're just playing this is going to put your opponent in that like feeling of unease if it's on that first turn, right? But any other time, it's not going to feel like that great to draw and play this card. So I don't know. Like I feel like it's probably not good. And I'm probably going to rate it conservatively as so, but I'm really interested in testing the shit out of this because the upside is interesting.
I totally agree. This is a really tough card for me to rate because, I mean, the dream was always turn 2 or turn 3 Tree Speaker into turn 3 or turn 4 Hissmage, but this lets you go even more broken than that. I mean, you can drop this turn 1, even without the Ring of Magicka, this turn 1, Treeminder turn 2, and Hissmage turn 3. That's a lot of ramp potential. Now, the magical fantasy land that you have to live in order for this thing to actually pull that off is, not the kind of place you visit a lot of the time. But I don't know. I mean, there's so much to think about in my mind. The fact that it has Drain means that people who were designing this card thought quite a bit about it, right? Because it's got, abilities that aren't really relevant with each other. So it's there to fill a slot, and I too will be testing with this card. I'm guessing it won't be good enough, but I just feel like it could be, and I'm just not used to playing with a card like this because there isn't any other card like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely built to tilt players. Like this, it's that scout high roll dream. Palace Prowler into Tree Minder into Thornhiss Maiden to just concede because it's over already. It's always a good time, but I don't know. I wish it didn't have Drain. It was like a 2/1. Maybe that's just me. I'd rather lose Drain. I think on this card.
I think it's easily the second most powerful 1-drop creature in the game.
Okay. I would like to see it lose Drain and maybe gain a stat somewhere. Maybe a 2/1 would personally be my preference. But even a 5 out of 10 because on turn 2, playing a 3-mana card can be very relevant. Even if you don't have the ring, you have the ring, turn 2 high defender is pretty insane. Even if you don't, turn 2, heck man, whatever you have, an Assassin, Daggerfall, Mage isn't too bad. So being able to play a stronger creature a bit earlier be relevant. It's just the fact that if you don't really get in that opening hand, it just feels really awkward. So I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 10. And your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, I'm going to give it it looks like a 1 out of 10 to be honest with you, but I am prepared to, I'd love to discover that I'm wrong, but I don't think it's going to be good enough.
Okay. And Charmer.
This is a solid 2 out of 10 with 6 out of 10 meme capability. Like that's, again, like the high rolls are the kind of stuff that like you want to clip for YouTube, but not the sort of thing you want to climb the ladder with, right? Like that's the best way I know how to describe it. Like you're gonna have like 1 out of every 10 games, something amazing is gonna happen and it's gonna feel great. And then if you're trying to climb the ladder, you're gonna go play something else. So I want to love this card, and I'm certainly gonna test it just for giggles, but I don't think there's enough there.
All right, I think the verdict is we're disappointed in Torvalkurt's younger sister. Yeah. So we move on to an interesting card simply titled Loot. As instrument. 1 mana item. +1/+2. The wielder is immune to silence. At first, I really didn't like this card. It's kind of like blah. I've kind of thought about it. It's, being immune to silence and adding some stats is pretty insane. Like, say for something, like if I get this on a Nahagleave, I now have an 8/9 that can't be targeted by spells and is immune to silence.
If you get this on a Nahagleave, what you have is something still bounced by Belligerent Giant. That's what you have.
Stop. and then even worse, like the Charging Viper card,
That is so true.
Or FGR, Manticore. Hey, look. But let's just say in a perfect world, my opponent just doesn't have any answers because I just lucked out. But this card, I mean, an item that can't be silenced makes me feel okay about it. Because typically that's one of the biggest drawbacks about items is they play one of the Fun Police cards. Your nice item's kind of gone, and its effect is only immune to its effect being immune to silence. And it being 1 mana is probably more key to me. Otherwise, any other mana cost, even at 2 mana, I don't think I'd be interested in this card. But at 1 mana, I actually kind of like it. As someone in chat mentioned, it's like Steel Scimitar almost. Like, you're missing 1 stat, but you're also immune to silence. Depending on what you put it on, could be pretty relevant. Your thoughts, Justin?
Deserves some testing in a Gardener of Swords deck for sure.
Oh, wow.
I also think it's one of the best things you can pull with a Plunder since it might help protect the other item you get.
Okay. And Charmer.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that it might be a tech card in item Sorcerer or just Gardener of Swords decks. It's something that you're probably okay with landing if you have played Merrick and it ends up on one of your random creatures. I think that, like, even when you just think about like practical uses, right? Like you tells this on like a Daggerfall Mage, it takes it out of execute range, and now they can't silence it, which means you're likely going to get the tome, or they spend like hard removal on it. So like it kind of becomes a win. But then the reverse is if they do turn around and they like edict it or javelin it or whatever, then you still 2-for-1 yourself. So like how much did you gain from that? I don't know. I think that there's certainly uses for it. It could theoretically protect Crystal Tower Crafter and make that thing almost relevant again, but yeah, I don't know. I think for me the biggest problem is just that we're, again, without seeing the other cards, but just basing it on what we know as the current meta today. There are so many willpower-based control decks out there that I just feel like even though this protects you from silence, you're still setting yourself up for a 2-for-1. And if it's not willpower, it's something that runs Belligerent Giant, right? Like there's no in between. You're either going to get Javelin, you're going to get Manticore, or you're going to get bounced. And this doesn't protect against any of those. This really only protects at this point against Earthbone Spinner. Shadowfen Priest isn't as like rampant as it used to be, so Spinner is the boogeyman here. And I don't know if that's worth it at the moment. So,
all right. Yeah, I think I'd rate this card 5. Yeah, I guess 5. It's kind of the 2-for-1 potential sucks. I mean, it's kind of hoping your opponent doesn't have an answer. But with yellow show decks being probably the most popular, Manticore, Jav, heck, this dies to anything if you trigger a Fighter's Good Recruit. So Viper kind of out of favor, but Astrid's around. And heck, the Shackle Spider kind of will shut your hopes and dreams down. And of course, the Fun Police card of Giant exists, shutting down your loots. 5 out of 10. What are your thoughts on that, Charmer? Rating?
yeah. I mean, I'm going to give it a 5 just because of potential for Gardener of Swords, but that's about it. Like, I don't think this is ever a card outside of a Gardener deck where you're running even multiples of it. Like, it might be a tech card or something, but there are certain cards that you want to like keep alive, high priority targets, right? You throw this on a Quinrall Burglar, you throw this on a Sower. There's a couple that I can think of right now that could benefit from it, but again, like Belligerent Giant's still a thing, Javelin's still a thing, so I don't know. I'll go with a 5, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 out of 10 sounds real reasonable.
All right.
It fits into the Gardener decks, and I don't know what else. Maybe Flesh Atronach, maybe or Secrets.
Okay. Oh, someone actually Daisy brings up a good point. If we had sideboards, this card might be good. So maybe in some kind of gauntlet or tournament format. So if they include a sideboard, this could be an interesting tech card for something.
Yeah, definitely.
But for now, yeah, I think we can agree on 5 out of 10. Now here is one of my favorite cards from the set. I hope I say this right. World Eater's Ivy. I think that said. It's a 6-mana red support. When you summon a creature that costs 7 or more power, double its power and health. That just, for a slow red deck, man, I can imagine playing this. Heck, the next card you play, a Vigilant Giant. Let me go ahead. Feel free to just bounce your opponent's card and get a 14-8. If this isn't answered right away. Jesus, Vigilant Giants, heck, Rage combos. I thought I was the dream of the meme of having like a Vigilant Giant out with this on, and getting Demora Mecha, sorry, whatever his name is, Demora with the M on, and just really smacking, doubling that 16 to a 32 for the sake of this crushing people. It deserves. It's one of those cards. It's kind of cool because it deserves an answer right away. if not answered, it just could flat out run away with the game. I think this is a sweet design, but at the same time, this is like maybe feel bad to not draw an answer to this card kind of view, like not drawing that Shadow Fen, not drawing that removal of that Giant or Vicious Drug. And we're not sure what else support move they've added any. So I think that's something they may want to be careful with. But I like it a lot so far. Justin, your thoughts?
I mean, I don't want to be like raining on people's parades here because it's an exciting card, but this card does nothing.
All right.
I mean, like at least with Rothgar Forge, you can combine it with a 0 cost Nord Firebrand the turn you play it, or you can stack your deck full of Prophecy cards. You just never get that out of this card. That said, there are certainly going to be matchups where this card is completely insane. But I don't know. I mean, it's better than Mundus Stone.
Why not both? Okay. And Charmer, your views.
So this card is, in my opinion, this is like one of the best rock, paper, scissors cards that I can think of, right? Because in certain matchups, I think I 100% agree with Justin. You play this and it's going to get Belligerent Giant, right? With some of the other cards we've seen, I imagine more people will be at least trying some of the ramp strategies again. So there's a strong chance you're going to play this and it's going to get Shadowfen Priest, right? But against, say, Control Mage, which has been really popular lately and just kind of period historically, if they're not one of the Control Mages running Vicious Dreg, this card is immediately a problem for Control Mage. It makes your Belligerent Giants no longer die to Lightning Bolt. Honestly, like, I think of, again, like some of the meme stuff you can do in Archer with this, with Eclipse Baroness. It makes Chorus Reaper almost not suck. I say almost, it still sucks. But you know what I mean? Like, now that card, you don't feel bad about paying 7 for it. Or heavens forbid, the Nest. 2 10/9s that whack your opposing lanes for a bit seems pretty good. So Tazcad is the obvious one. You stack a couple of these and you can start setting up OTK potential with Tazcad, or if there's other cards with charge. So like, I can see potential there, but there's also just as many scenarios where this card either does nothing or is immediately answered. That it really is just like a rock, paper, scissors card. It's really, really good in like 2 or 3 matchups, specifically against Control Monk and Control Mage if they don't have the Vicious Dreg. I think this can grind out some value for you, but I guess for me, so here's the other part to it. I don't know that even in those matchups where this card would be good, I don't know that this is immediately better than Rothgar Forge. Because Rothgar Forge, you're going to get on it makes all your top decks good, potentially, right? Even if you draw that, 2-drop late in the game, it's something. Where this is, you have to play it and draw your late game that you kind of already wanted or needed anyway. So, I don't know. It could be amazing, again, without seeing other cards in the set. If we have a way to protect supports, if there are other cards that have charge or immediate impacts that cost 7 or more, then maybe. But right now, it's not like super exciting for me.
Word up. I mean, this is going to be awesome when I punish Wrath of Sithis and then play a Night Shadow. I'm like, bam. No, but seriously, I think this is an interesting card. But actually, I know that interaction is going to happen. I'm going to play Wrath of Sithis, and they're going to play freaking Night Shadow. I'm going to be like, I don't have an answer for that. Have a lightning ball and a fireball and something in my hand and won't be able to deal with it and just cry myself to sleep. But I'm going to give this card right now, in slow metas, it's pretty sweet. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I like this card. I think there's potential there. I mean, sure, it's only about... someone actually mentioned in the chat a good point. Paying 6 mana support for like 10%, maybe less of your deck. but it's pretty impactful in my opinion. Again, like that build your own giant, like this, and then being able to get a build your own giant out, just sending it's pretty insane play. But I mean, there's counterplay as every card should. So yeah, I'll leave it at 7 out of 10. Charmer, your thoughts?
For me, it's like it's basically like a overcosted tech card. Like I'm gonna say 5 out of 10, and that's assuming that there's probably going to be some sort of OTK deck that people craft out of it. But even in that case, you're probably playing 2 or 3 of these to trigger the OTK. So that's playing multiple cards that cost 6 that don't advance your board state that also have to not get answered. I just don't. Like I said, we haven't seen everything, but like I'm gonna give it a 5. To me, this is. I'm not even sure this is as useful as Loot that I gave a 5 out of 10. Right? It's a great rock paper scissors card. It's got potential to shine in a couple of matchups, but I don't think that it's better than Rothgar Forge even in those matchups. So we're gonna give it a tentative 5 out of 10.
Okay, and your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, I'll give it a. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10 with the note that in a couple weeks, look forward to a video where I kill somebody with a 36 creature.
Listen, man, you just get that Shadowmere dream going.
That's right.
They will not expect the Shadowmere smack in their face. I know I'm just gonna be extremely infuriated when I can't remove this as playing Control Mage and somebody gets that 12/12 Chazcad on me, and I'm just like, well, that felt good. But alright. The Timmy in me says play this card hardcore though. Alright, so now I'm loving this card. This is the name and the art. Grizzly Gourmet. 3 mana, 2/1, transform an enemy creature with 2 or less power into a sweep roll. So I mean, this Rex Daggerfall Mage, right? Which is a card I hear quite often people don't like to have to deal, and it's a turn 3. Personally, I mean, there's gonna be more like cards with 2 power introduced that are worth getting rid of. I mean, heck, that Dark Guardian, another card that's kind of just Rex. Don't actually, as cool as this card is, I'm lukewarm on it. Personally, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. Myself, 5 out of 10. It's cool. Oh, Ruins Billmore is Spymaster too. That's not played. Somebody play that often, but I think
we got to give a huge shout out to whoever designed this card, because this is like one of the most amazing examples of a card that feels like the character from the game that I've ever seen. Like, I love that aspect of it. You know, this guy chops up people and eats them as sweet rolls. Like, it's amazing. So props to that.
Okay, definitely. And your thoughts, Charmer?
I mean, yeah, I would agree. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 on flavor.
Nice.
And I would give it a... I feel like this is probably somewhere in the 6 to 7 out of 10 range. Strictly because I think that you want to run Execute still, even if you're also running this, and I almost wonder if running this on top of Execute is too much. Like, they're competing, but usually you want Execute because you want to respond to whatever that high quality 2-drop is before it has a chance to get out of control, right? Think about your Daring Cut Purses or whatever else. This guy's still really good at taking out, say, like a Goblin Skulk, but if you don't have the ring, they might get a swing in on you or multiples. So this thing still does take out like Dark Guardian, Daggerfall Mage, so it does have uses there. But again, like for me anyway, I think Execute's probably still the right choice because of wanting it as early as possible. And I don't know if you run Execute and this, because sometimes I'm already tripping over my Executes. And with the meta potentially shifting to slower, potentially shifting to dragons and so on and so forth, Execute might even go down in value. So yeah, I feel like 6 out of 10 is probably where it's likely at, even if it is 10 out of 10 flavor.
I want to say too that you can kind of mitigate the downside of running 3 executes and 3 of these fellas if you run Cloud Resolutionist in your deck. A play to combo this with Cloud Resolutionist, but that's about the time that you're going to want to take down something with 6 or less power too. So I don't know. I think this card's pretty strong. I like it. I'm going to give it a 6.5. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it'll see play. I don't think it's great.
Oh, Victor up. Make host. All right, so Daisy's trying to meme. It is make homemade protein bars, guys. Calm down. They're looking up on my tabs. Daisy's the biggest troll. This is why I let him mod my channel. But alright, I think we covered Grimsby Gourmet. Let's see. Legit. I'm not sold on the card, but we'll see. And now another card called Midnight Snack. 2 mana, 2/2, Prophecy Guard, Last Grass. It's a neutral, by the way, Nord. Looks like they're breaking the color scheme a bit here. With the thing that was there. Reduce the cost of a random dragon in your hand by 1. And that's the Last Grass, 2/2, Prophecy Guard. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10. Looks like it's okay. I mean, could be okay. I mean, reducing. I do like the interaction of reducing cards in your hand by 1. The dragon and dragon deck. It's a prophecy, which is cool. So on a slower deck, getting a 2/2 guard can be pretty solid. Plus a 2/2 guard that reduces a card as a card in your hand by 1 could be pretty damn impactful. That's, playing that Drain Dragon a turn earlier could be all the difference. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 so I can see what other dragons are out there. That may go up or down. I think it's all around good. I really like this card. Maybe a 8 out of 10, 6, 7.5 I'd say even. Prophecy and Guard really make this card I think solid. And then the Last Grasp. You have to reduce a card to your hand. This is a very powerful effect. And your thoughts, Charmer?
I do like this card. I think that it's good enough, like, to even run an arena, even if you don't have dragons, just because of the prophecy and the guard. So, like, the 2/2 prophecy guard for 2 is, okay. It's not great, but it's not bad. I think this thing takes a pretty significant rise in value if you're playing a lot of dragons. Getting any sort of reduction is great. I also like that this triggers on the last gasp. I think of scenarios where, you potentially get your dragon reduced in cost from like a Thieves Guild recruit draw, and then you get it further reduced because you played this and it died. So I'm looking at you, turn 4 Nahagleave. I'm not sure. Now, those things being said, I'm not sure that this ends up being like amazing, right? Like it's good enough and it has like good synergies, but it's not like, it doesn't wow me necessarily. So like for me, I would probably say it's like a 6 out of 10 because it's only going to be likely in a couple of archetypes, and then it's okay, but it's not like great in those archetypes.
All right, and Justin.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think the card's cute, but I mean, so there's a couple ways that I was thinking about this. Like, take Scout Ram for example. Like, there are a lot of 2-drops, 3-drops that deck runs that serve a purpose, but their primary function is to make sure that you can eventually cast your giant ridiculous creatures. And whether this card sees play, I think, is going to be dependent upon whether or not the deck you're playing is going to get more value out of this than they would out of a Thieves Guild recruit or the 3/3 with prophecy that gives you completed contracts, or Fighters Guild Recruit, all those kinds of cards. Looking at it right now, I think the answer is probably no. But, so which really just leaves the types of places that can't run, the green cards as places you could see this seeing play. And I'm not sure that those decks are going to be using this to discount their dragons by one, kind of not very reliably. So I'm not a huge fan. I'll give it like a 4 out of 5.
All right. Verdict on Midnight Snack, which I just realized he's called Midnight Snack because he's about to get eaten by a dragon. Very flavorful. Just got that because his last guy's reduced to dragon because it's fed. That's awesome. All right, and the final card, Encumbered Explorer, is a 1-mana 2/3 purple Imperial card with Shackle Encumbered Explorer after he attacks. Very interesting card as a 1-drop.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think, I can see him in this lower deck, tossing him out just to test the field lane against aggressive decks, just to kind of throw it out there, and it's like, I don't necessarily plan on attacking your face, to be honest, and I can get this to kill a creature. Unfortunately, it's shackle the following turn. I assume you come up with a follow-up answer, because it'll be unshackled the next turn as you play another card to answer, and then you get your 2/3 back. So, I'm going to give it... I actually like this card. I can kind of see it working out. Heck, if you're using one of those funky silence decks, you may be able to get more value out of this. I'm going to give this one 6 out of 10, just because if I'm playing a slower deck, I'm probably not trying to attack too often. Just trading up with other creatures from 1 to 2. Drop even. I'm gonna drop that to 5/10. This could have potential to be kind of chill. At the same time, it's being shackled for a whole turn. I mean, it's just with the anti-shackle card, maybe, but I don't know. I maybe a 5, maybe fading down to a 4.5 out of 10. I'm gonna leave it at 5 out of 10 because I would say 4, 5. I'm gonna give it both. But because it kind of sucks, but it's kind of okay. But it kind of also really sucks. That's my thoughts. So I'll toss it to you, Justin. What do you think?
I think this is one of the most powerful cards revealed so far. I think that the more tempo-oriented the meta becomes, if that's the direction it goes, the better this card gets for control decks. I think that this card will see play in a lot of every control deck running purple, maybe even Scout Ramp. The potential to 2-for-1 your opponent's early game with a is just incredible. So yeah, I think it's really strong. Obviously, it has some synergy with the silences and stuff that you can run in purple, but yeah, card's good, in my opinion. I would give it a 8 out of 10. I expect to see it.
Very nice. And your thoughts, Charmer?
I mean, I'm in the same camp that I think that it's a control card. It reminds me a lot of Zombie Chow. It's a 1-drop 2/3 meant to just kind of contest early. Now, you can't like back-to-back trade into things, and obviously I think that it would be more powerful if it gave your opponent health, because then you could put them off from gaining runes and whatever. But like, I think for me, see, the value to me for this card is that it helps to potentially dictate what your opponent is going to do early, right? So if you are going first and you drop this in the field lane, they either have to be playing like Windkeep Spellsword or something with 3 health, or you're pushing them like immediately into the shadow lane, right? So in terms of control, you're typically wanting to dictate what they're doing, right? And so I think there's a benefit in that. Even if you don't get back-to-back attacks, like if this eats a 2/2 and then you don't get to attack for a turn, but then you get to swing later, like it's a long-term investment, which is again just fine for control. You're paying 1 Magicka to likely trade up into something, so it's good from an efficiency standpoint. If you're not running, say, Sorcerer, where you don't have access to this and Firebolt, This is like a delayed firebolt in many ways. You're paying 1 to do likely just 2 to something that you may or may not get to use more than once. So, I mean, yeah, there's the negative there, but from like a control standpoint, I fully see the value in this. The downside, though, right, is unlike Firebolt, you can't hit things immediately. So if you're trying to say contest Goblin Skulk, it's going to get at least 1 trigger. Cut Purse still gets out of control, and this can't answer. So there are drawbacks. And obviously they can avoid this by going to the other lane. So while you're dictating what they do and you push them to the shadow lane, you then still need to follow up and have a response to it. So there is negatives, but I think it's, I think that there's enough value there that I expect it to see play in at least some control decks for sure. I'm somewhere, I would say like I'm a 6.5 out of 10. And that's on the premise that I expect to see Spell Sword and Sorcerer controls at least tested in the early rounds. If it's, if those start seeing play, I think it sees play in those decks. Maybe even Warrior Control too. I don't know.
Okay. Cool. Well, that is the cards we have today. Man, we went on longer on this part than I actually expected. Okay, which is not good bad. We had a lot, which means we just had an in-depth look at each of the cards. Great to hear some other opinions other than my own. It's definitely altered my influence on some of the cards. Influence my decisions on some of the cards would be the proper way to speak, but it's late. Man, yeah, we went for like an hour and 40 minutes. Jesus, that's awesome.
You get for living on the East Coast, man. You got to move out west.
Right? Alright, but I'd like to thank my well, actually, before I say the final thank you, was there anything else you guys want to mention?
I'm really glad that you're doing this podcast, man. It's a lot of fun, and I think you should keep it up because I think a lot of people are into podcasts, and you could be the one.
Sounds good to me. Charm3r, any final thoughts?
This was fun. We should do it again sometime. I can't wait to see more of the set.
All right, most certainly. Awesome. Well, I do want to thank Charm3r and Justin for coming out to the podcast, doing this with me. I really appreciate that. That was freaking awesome. This has been a lot of fun, and thank you all for all the viewers. I'll be chopping this up, of course, putting it on YouTube, Blog Talk Radio, and of course iTunes, and a few other things I was talking to people about. So again, thank you all. This has been a lot of fun.